another restoration video on the Acura Legend Coupe. Today we're going to be working on the suspension of the vehicle. If you've been following our video series on the restoration of the Acura Legend, you know that we've gone from mechanical restoration under the hood to interior restoration with our leather replacement, and now we're going to be working on the suspension. So the suspension for this vehicle, as you would imagine, is no longer available, so we can't go back to OEM very easily. If we were, we'd be rolling the dice, so to speak, with some used parts. We have something slightly better for this vehicle. We have Koni struts. So the original owner of this vehicle replaced the rear struts with Konis, but wasn't able to find the front struts. So this car, when I purchased it, was paired up with H&R springs, Konis in the rear, OEM struts in the front. And today we're going to balance that out by installing Konis all the way around and pairing them with the H&R springs. So I hope you like this video. It's going to be a bit of a DIY, but maybe this will give you the confidence to go ahead and replace your own suspension on your Acura Legend. So we've got our wheel removed here. We've got our OEM strut, as you can see, and these are aftermarket H&R springs. True to the period, but we have to replace this strut. You're never supposed to put OEM struts paired with a lowering spring, and the reason is that the mid-stroke of those struts was never really designed to handle a lower actuation point. So it's important that we get a new strut in here that's more designed for a lowering application such as these springs. It's fairly simple, and I'll talk you through it real quick. Basically, there's a pinch bolt that goes on the bottom of the strut here that holds the lower fork, which is basically like two lower arms that bend around the lower control arm. So this fork that comes around the control arm going through the middle of it has a bolt that goes through it. And that's a 17mm nut on one side and a bolt on the other. So that will have to be removed. Additionally, the pinch bolt has to be removed, which is at the top part of it. The top part squeezes the strut as it's into the fork here. Once it's squeezed in, then it kind of locks everything in place. So the starting point is break the brake lines off. So you want to loosen the nuts that hold it in two places. The brake line should come apart and off of the strut assembly, and then you'll be left with the lower fork that attaches to the strut. That has to come off, and once that's off, you can remove that lower fork by pushing down on it and sliding it forward towards the hub. This will give you enough room so that you can release the three nuts on the top side in the strut tower that will allow you to bring the strut assembly down. Once the strut assembly is down, you can then go ahead and disassemble the strut coil pack. And that's where our work is going to begin today. So let's go ahead and get you set up so that you can see what we're doing here. Okay, what we went ahead and did here was disconnect the brake line. There's a couple 12mm and a couple 10mm that hold it to the control arm hub here, assembly, as well as to the strut. You can probably remove it without removing the 10 that controls that onto the arm here that goes for the knuckle and hub assembly, but we went ahead and just gave ourselves a little extra slack here. So next we're going to remove the through bolt here on the bottom side. So you'll need a 17mm socket and wrench, one to hold one side and one to hold the other. There we go. And if you're having a little trouble removing this, you can use a soft mallet, but for the most part it should come off pretty easily. We'll leave that through so that we can take off the pinch bolt. The pinch bolt is up here. That's a 14mm. now that we've got the pinch bolt and the through bolt pretty much disconnected at this point, I'm just going to pull the through bolt out here. There we go. Go ahead and put your through bolt and your nut together so you don't lose that. Hold on to your pinch bolt for the top part, and we can slide the lower fork assembly down here, and then we'll take the strut assembly and push it back so that the fork is at the top here. And then next we'll remove from the top part the 3 bolts, or the 3 nuts that hold the strut on. Now we've got the strut assembly loosened up. Okay, so the next part is that we've got to get the spring assembly disassembled, and the way you do that is you have a spring compressor to take the tension off of the top cap so that you can remove the top cap bolt. So we've got that all set up. It's a 14 on the top, 19 here for our spring compressor. Then be super careful, make sure that your pins are locked in here so that this whole thing doesn't go flying. And then we basically just tighten this up. You want to go incrementally. And once you've taken the tension off of the top and the bottom part of it, you can disassemble the spring. We'll change over to a 14 millimeter here. You need to be super careful here because this may go shooting out. Okay, there's our 14. Take the top washer off. And then our top cap off. Got a bottom washer. So if you're keeping tabs, you'll do it like that. And then we want to take the spring out. This will take the bellow out. We'll look in there. Clean that out a little bit. Here is our strut assembly. Okay, so what we now need to do is take this part off, and we'll need to take this part off. This will require some hammering, so let's go ahead and get that set up. Okay, so we've got our strut, our original strut here, set up in the vise. We've got some towels around it just to protect it in case we do want to end up using this in the future. But basically we're going to be knocking this off so that we can transfer this over to the new part, and then we'll have to knock this off by pushing it up and out. So let's go ahead and start hammering on this. Take this over. Okay. Okay, so that's the top cap for that. As you can see there, I'm just taking a 3/8 extension here that I've used time and time again, and just getting that lip and then tapping it out. So we basically just need to keep on doing that. Find a nice sturdy surface, place it up against there. Okay, there we go. We got our top, which is the spring perch, and then we've got our bottom, which is basically just the bracket for the brakes. And now we've got this strut disassembled. You can also test it if you want to by pushing down on it. And it it should return. And this one's really not returning that well, so it's probably due for replacement anyways. But we'll hold on to it just in case. Okay, reassembly is pretty much the same as reverse. A couple little things to point out though is that when you're putting this part on, there's a little indent in your strut here. This is where the pinch bolt or the through bolt goes in to pinch the bottom part when you're assembling it back into the car. And what I like to do is make sure that you got this tab, this little stick out part right here. This is also going to line up with the lower fork, and you want to make sure that it lines up dead center in there, not off to the side, dead center, because what's going to happen is that the bolt needs to go through this, but it also needs to line up with the little jut out there, if you will. And what I like to do is lubricate the inside of this, clean it out, lubricate it. I use penetrating oil, doesn't really matter what you use, but you're just basically looking to reduce the friction on this. And you can line it up by just following the mark in. And then what we're going to do is basically hammer it on here until we get to the point where it bottoms out. So grab your 3/8 extension and just start tapping it in there, just going around and making sure that you get it evenly seated. But you're also checking for alignment. So we'll go ahead and keep on doing this. This may take a while too. It's definitely something you want to take your time on. Make sure that you've got it aligned well. So you get the gist of this. Let's go ahead and skip past this part and we'll go to the full assembly. Okay, we've got the bottom part on. Pretty easy actually. So the next part to put on is your spring perch. It's pretty simple. You just slide it over and then put it on like that. There is a ring that needs to go on here first actually, so we'll go ahead and do that, but this you don't have to hammer on, it just slides like that over. So that's that. Pretty easy, I'd say. Let's go ahead and just flip this into a position where we can assemble this easier. Okay, with your new kit you should have new bits and pieces that will go for the install. This has to go in and sit down on right there. As you can see, you can adjust it so we could move this down to here, but I'm going to leave it at the maximum height before we determine whether that's going to be appropriate or not. So we've got our new parts installed. This now goes up and over that and sits just like that. We'll clean it up a little bit here just to get a good spot. And the orientation of this part doesn't really matter because this is just a spring. It's basically just an assembly that's self-contained. So we'll go ahead and put this on. And then we'll need to put the rest of it back together. If you notice there was no bump stop on the old one, there should be a bump stop. Okay, so here's our new bump stop. Okay, there's our bump stop installed. Now we've got to put our spring back on and our spring perch back on. So, like this. this up a little bit. And what locks this all together is actually the tension on the spring, that the spring provides, I should say. So we're actually looking for it to hold it all together. Just get some of this caked up. So, go ahead and fix that. Put that on there. Okay, now we'll put our spring on. Just like that. That goes on the bottom here. Our new top cap here. Oop, we got to transfer over a part here. Forgot about that. So this part is the cushion for the spring, so we want to make sure we install that. Let's see here. Get this lined up just right. There we go. And the idea behind this part is that it's going to provide some dampening vibration and just hold the spring where it needs to be. Okay, so we've got our coil cushion on the bottom of our top cap. Got a rubber top here that needs to be transferred over, and then we can start to cinch all of this down by putting our top cap bolt on. We'll go ahead and do that now. And our new one is bigger than our old one. Start to release our coil. We'll go ahead and take it out of the vise for that, and we'll pick back up on that after we're done. And here is our finished product. As you can see here, the tire's a little muddy, and so is the rim, and that's because when you do your suspension work, you need to settle it down, and you can only accomplish that really by driving it. So took it down our dirt road and then back up. But you can see that the gap between the wheel and the fender is appropriate for the lowered position with the H&R springs, but the ride will be greatly enhanced with those new Koni struts. Okay, so now that we've got the suspension all sorted out, what we have to do is figure out what's still wrong on the car and make a list so that we can check that off. Things like this we'll have to take care of. Also, you can see here from the visor that's around the moonroof, we have to figure out how to get that off. But we're going to do a general detailing anyways on this car. It's going to be a quite lengthy video in the sense that we are going to bring it to like showroom condition on the paint, much like what we did on the Acura CL. So stay tuned for that in an upcoming video, but for now, I hope you enjoyed the content, and we'll catch you on the next one.